Contrary to what some believe, Japan is not a weird place. In fact, it's very normal, even from the perspective of a Westerner. Japan does create weird entertainment from time to time, but many other countries do as well. That being said, Japan is by far the best at it. My apologies to David Lynch and David Cronenberg, but you're only two people. Japan's weird output is prolific. That's why in this video I will count down another 10 weird Japanese movies worth watching. But before I do, I'd like to quickly mention the sponsor of this video, CyberGhost VPN. If you love watching streaming entertainment from all over the world, you will also love CyberGhost VPN. CyberGhost VPN provides complete privacy and security while browsing the internet, as well as the ability to unlock content from over 30 streaming services, including Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, and Amazon Prime, in over 90 countries or 6,200 servers. Click the link in the video description to get 80% off CyberGhost VPN for the first 18 months. That's only $2.75 a month. Since my last video about weird Japanese movies, I've totally changed the format of this channel, but still, I love weird movies, especially from Japan, and there are many, many more to cover. Like last time, I will not include anime because it's been covered by other channels, and for the sake of variety, I will keep it to one weird film per director. I should also warn you that if you've ever been disturbed by disturbing stuff, this video may disturb you. So let's get started. For the 1991 film 964 Pinocchio, director Shozen Fukui decided to adapt the classic children's novel by Carlo Collodi, Pinocchio, but made a few minor changes. For instance, instead of a wooden puppet, Pinocchio is a defective cyborg sex slave. Minor differences. After being released by his client for being defective, 964 Pinocchio wanders the streets of Tokyo until he meets Himiko, a homeless girl who, like Pinocchio, has had her memory wiped for a mysterious purpose. Himiko tries to help Pinocchio until she is triggered and instead tries to kill him, which is exactly what the company who created Pinocchio wants to do as well. If that plot summary doesn't make a lot of sense, then the film will make even less. But somehow, 964 Pinocchio works as a kind of visceral art film. It is both disturbing and deviously funny. However, the highlight for me is the over-the-top performances of its actors, as well as their Buto dance-like movements. While this one may not be quite as good as Shinya Tsukamoto's cyberpunk classic Tetsuo the Iron Man, if you liked Tetsuo the Iron Man, you will like this as well. 10 Nights of Dreams is a 2006 film adaptation of 10 short pieces by legendary Japanese writer Natsumi Soseki. It is a compilation film with, you guessed it, 10 short segments, each helmed by a different director, including the legendary Kon Ichikawa and renowned illustrator Yoshitaka Amano, in one of his rare directing credits. In each segment, the protagonist, usually a version of the author, Soseki, recalls a dream. I must admit that some of these, like the first few segments, are not that weird and more creepy or intriguing. However, as this film progresses, things become increasingly weird, especially by the 8th segment, which bears almost no resemblance to the story that it is based on, and instead tells the tale of a boy who finds a long white thing in a rice paddy and wants to keep it as a pet. Sort of. Other stuff happens that is difficult to describe. 10 Nights of Dreams is at times nightmarish, at times surreal, but overall a fun watch that definitely adheres to dream logic. The 2005 film Turtles Are Surprisingly Fast Swimmers is the third film by director Satoshi Miki, a director who would later make my favorite Japanese hangout movie, Adrift in Tokyo, but that one isn't so weird. Turtles Are Surprisingly Fast Swimmers, on the other hand, is. It's that kind of quirky, funny, endearing weird that can be a lot of fun. The story follows a bored housewife named Suzumi, whose only responsibilities in life are housework and feeding a turtle. However, these seemingly mundane activities turn out to be far stranger than you might expect. Things become stranger still when Suzumi notices a postage stamp-size advert stuck to a banister while she is having apples dumped on her. The advert calls for spies, so Suzumi decides to spice up her humdrum existence and learn the ways of spying around her quiet, suburban neighborhood. Spying, however, proves to be far more complicated than Suzumi anticipated. If you're anticipating a lot of plot from this film, and specifically plot that makes a lot of sense, you might be disappointed. However, if you think you might enjoy an odd, off-the-wall insight into a Japanese housewife's life in a small town, Turtles Are Surprisingly Fast Swimmers is not surprisingly a fun watch. In my last video on weird Japanese movies, I featured the first two films directed by Japanese comedy legend Hitoshi Matsumoto, and like those films, Matsumoto's fourth film is an epically weird journey. R100 follows Takafumi, a seemingly ordinary Japanese businessman who has hired the services of a mysterious BDSM club. The services in question are a series of encounters between Takafumi and a large number of dominatrixes. Each dominatrix appears unannounced and equipped with their own unique skill in the art of humiliation. However, usually this involves beating the hell out of Takafumi. Eventually, the dominatrixes cross the line and begin to involve Takafumi's family, even his son, in their work. The only way Takafumi can end his contract with the club is to face off with its CEO, but she means business. If that sounds like a strange plot for a film, the producers of this film agree with you, or at least the fictional in-film producers, who periodically criticize the film's plot. Rather than Matsumoto, the in-film director is a 100-year-old man. Matsumoto's films have a habit of going from strange but followable in the first and second acts to blindsiding you with the thoroughly bewildering finale, and R100 is no exception to this. What starts as an eccentric but easily understood plot devolves into unmitigated insanity by the film's end. But as the fictional 100-year-old director says, you're not old enough to get it. Junji Ito is likely Japan's most acclaimed horror manga creator, and as such, his work has inspired a number of film adaptations, including the Tomy series and the Gyo anime. Arguably the best adaptation of his work is the 2000 film Uzumaki. To be fair, it's nearly impossible to recapture the uniquely dark atmosphere of Ito's manga in any other medium, but I think director Higuchinsky's film, Uzumaki, is the best so far. I'll have to check out the upcoming Uzumaki anime miniseries when it's released later this year. Literally translated, Uzumaki means spiral, or swirl. And as per the title, this film is about a small Japanese town that is plagued by spirals. Okay, when I say it like that, it actually doesn't sound so scary, but leave it to Ito to somehow make a simple shape into the freakiest thing you've ever encountered. The story follows Kiri and her friend Shuichi as they attempt to unravel the mysterious entity consuming their town. Gradually, an increasing number of the town's residents become so fixated on spirals that they are drawn into them, spiraling toward their own death. That, or they gradually morph into a giant snail with a spiral shell, among other grotesque spiral-related ends. Only Kiri and Shuichi have a chance to break the cycle and solve this mystery before it completely spirals out of control. While it may not be quite as good as the manga, judged as a film alone, this is a very unnerving, weird, and great piece of J-horror cinema. You really have to appreciate the subtle touches like the partially hidden spirals in the background or the foreground of some shots. J-horror fans should definitely give this one a whirl. Shion Sono is one of Japan's most acclaimed and interesting directors. His films also tend to be pretty weird. For example, the 2005 Strange Circus, 2008 Love Exposure, or 2013 Why Don't You Play in Hell? The film that put Sono on the map was his 2001 mind-breaking horror film, Suicide Club, aka Suicide Circle. The story kicks off when a group of 54 schoolgirls voluntarily jump in front of an oncoming train and are overrun in an absurdly bloody opening sequence. Following several more suicides at a hospital, a team of 3 detectives, Kuroda, Shibusawa, and Murata, are dispatched to investigate what becomes an exponentially increasing number of group suicides. The only clues found at first are rolls of patched human skin that match the bodies found at the site of each incident. However, an independent hacker named Kyoko, aka The Bat, shares a mysterious website with the detectives that she believes is connected to the suicides. When Kyoko is kidnapped by a cult leader named Genesis, who likes to rock out while his victims are raped and murdered, the detectives believe they have found the source of the suicide plague. But have they? You will just have to watch the entire film to not entirely find out, because nothing in this film is simple or obvious. From my description alone, Suicide Club sounds like a horror, mystery, or suspense thriller that is disturbing, but not really that weird. And unfortunately, I can't show or refer to the weirdest part of this film because it is the ending, and obviously a spoiler. I will only say that the ending of this film is mysterious, but at the same time, it resonates. I, along with many others, have my own interpretation of what this film means, but I believe it's up to each viewer to decide that. So if you haven't already, you'll just have to watch Suicide Club in order to decipher your own meaning out of the weirdness. You could say that Shuji Terayama's 1974 film, Pastoral, To Die in the Country, is avant-garde or surreal rather than weird. And I mean surreal in the sense of the artistic movement as defined by André Breton's Manifesto. That being said, Breton's Manifesto is pretty weird. The film presents a fever dream-like version of a boy's youth in the Japanese countryside, as well as his relationship with his overbearing mother, the townsfolk, and the wife of his neighbor with whom he plans to elope. That is until the fourth wall is pulled back, and again, we meet a fictional version of the film's director. What was already surreal becomes very meta when the director ponders his relationship with his childhood and the meaning behind this fictional film version of it. These two layers of fiction overlap as the director enters his own film and begins interacting with the memory of his past self, literally self-indulging in his autobiography. Although this film is very Japanese, it also reveals some of Terayama's art house influences, including a Fellini-esque circus, a Bergman-esque chess match or Go match, Parajanov-esque framing and symbolism, and a James Cameron-esque grandfather paradox.
君の3代前のおばあさんを殺したとしたら、現在の君はいなくなるか?
Okay, forget that last one. Pastoral To Die in the Country is a must-watch for art house fans, in part for its striking visual style, but also the creative way that it explores the purpose of autobiographical art and the fiction of memory. Director Seijun Suzuki initially gained notoriety for his hyper-stylized and absurdist Yakuza films like Tokyo Drifter and Branded to Kill, although not right away. He was actually fired by his studio for that last film and then blacklisted for a decade. However, by the time he premiered the first of his Taisho trilogy of films, Suzuki had gained recognition as a true auteur. The Taisho trilogy is set in Japan's Taisho era from 1912 to 1925, which, incidentally, is the era that gave birth to the Eroguro Nonsensu, or erotic grotesque nonsense, art and literary movement. This movement is perhaps the seed that eventually grew into the aesthetic of contemporary weird Japanese horror, but I digress, more on that later. Suzuki's early Yakuza films are weirdly awesome, but I believe his Taisho trilogy is weirder and, for me, more intriguing. In this video, I'll focus on the second entry of the trilogy, Kagoroza, aka Hite's Theater, from 1981. The story begins when playwright Shungo meets a mysterious woman who gives him a bladder cherry, which he takes to represent her soul. Through a series of erotic encounters with the woman, Shungo becomes increasingly obsessed with her, and even considers her proposal that they die as lovers. Eventually, Shungo discovers that the woman, Shinako, is the wife of his patron, the wealthy but sadistic Mr. Tamawaki, who uses the affair as an opportunity to toy with both his wife and Shungo. This would-be bizarre love triangle is disrupted by the ghost of Tamawaki's recently deceased first wife, Ine. Although this film is set in the era of Eroguro Nonsensu art, the film itself is not so much Eroguro, and like Terayama's film, is more surrealist, or perhaps a Japanese version of magical realism, in that it weaves ghost stories, folklore, and daydreams into its narrative as if they were truth. This film and the other two Taisho trilogy entries are all beautiful, surreal, haunting, and very weird masterpieces from the master Suzuki. The 1969 film Horrors of Malformed Men is a bizarre classic in the category of Japanese cult horror. The story is adapted from the novels of Japanese horror and mystery godfather Edogawa Rampo. And no, I didn't just say Edgar Allan Poe's name while eating peanut butter. Rampo took his pen name from Poe. Rampo's work is one of the biggest catalysts of the Eroguro Nonsensu movement in literature. Unlike the Taisho trilogy, Horrors of Malformed Men can be seen as a faithful representation of that movement's aesthetic on film. The story begins with Hirosuke, a medical student who finds himself in a mental institution with no memory of his past. Hirosuke escapes the institution, but soon after is framed for the murder of a young woman. Now on the run, Hirosuke notices an obituary for a man who is seemingly his double and decides to assume the dead man's identity. The charade seems to work. Even the dead man's family are fooled until Hirosuke is stalked by mysterious hunchbacks in the rafters of his new home. A hazy memory then leads Hirosuke to a nearby island, where he discovers his double's insane, web-fingered father, and the man's bizarre plans for the island and Hirosuke are revealed. The director, Teru Ishii, has made more purely weird films than this one, like the 1998 film Screwed or the 1999 Hell, but Horrors of Malformed Men is still very weird and, in my opinion, a better film. What begins as a somewhat standard thriller and murder mystery gets pretty far out there by the time Hirosuke reaches the island. The islanders perform a kind of extreme version of the already extreme Japanese Buto dance style, and in fact, the co-founder of Buto dance, Tatsumi Hijikata, plays the main villain of this film. Let's be honest, this entire list could be filled with the top 10 weirdest Takashi Miike films. Although using the word weird is redundant, the top 10 Takashi Miike films is pretty much the same thing. That's why I included the one film per director rule. Ichi the Killer, Visitor Q, Izo, and other Miike films are all deserving of a spot on this list, and I included The Happiness of the Katakuris in my last video. Audition is, in my opinion, Miike's best film, but not that weird compared to his 2003 weird masterpiece, Gozu. The story of Gozu begins when Yakuza member Ozaki brutally kills a small dog that he believes has been trained to attack Yakuza, and thus exposes his complete insanity to his Yakuza brothers. One of these, Minami, is tasked with whacking Ozaki, but first the pair must travel to Nagoya, where Minami can dispose of the body at a dead Yakuza disposal site. While on the road, Ozaki vanishes, and what might have been a straight-up buddy Yakuza road trip movie gradually slips into a surreal fever dream. Minami is forced to interact with increasingly odd locals to locate Ozaki, including a woman who claims to be Ozaki herself.
だから私がその兄貴だって言ってるでしょ
Literally translated, Gozu means cowhead, and is a reference to a Japanese urban legend regarding a story that kills those who hear it. Not surprisingly for Miike, this film has very little to do with that, aside from a drooling cow-headed man wearing tighty-whities. He is a reference to an ox-headed demon from Japanese and Chinese folklore that guards the gates of hell. I won't give away the ending, but I'll simply say that it's very eroguro nonsensu, in the literal definition of that term, not necessarily the definition of the movement itself. This film is more of a canvas for Miike to paint his unconscious fears, fetishes, humor, and high-functioning weirdness. It's unexpected, but in retrospect, exactly what you'd expect from a master of weird horror. Those are my picks for 10 more weird Japanese films worth checking out, but there are still many more out there. Here are 10 more weird Japanese movies that didn't quite make this list either because they weren't weird enough, they weren't the right kind of weird, or they were very weird but overall not as good films as those on this list, in my opinion. If you've ever looked for weird or interesting streaming content, you may have come across the phrase "not available in your region." With CyberGhost VPN, that will no longer be an issue because it allows you to change your internet server location to your choice of over 90 countries while securing your browsing and downloading data. CyberGhost does not log your data. This service is easy to set up and use and is available on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, and many more operating systems. It can also be used on up to 7 devices at the same time. Visit the link in the description to access a special offer for those watching this video. You'll get CyberGhost VPN's great service for only $2.75 a month for the first year and a half. If you decide the service is not for you, you can cancel it and get your money back within the first 45 days. So there is no risk in trying CyberGhost VPN, but there is a risk browsing the internet without it. Please let me know what weird Japanese films you enjoy in the comments below and what you thought of the films included on this list. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and hit the notification bell to be notified of new weird videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time.